Welcome, everyone. Another episode of Nitty Gritty. We here, finally, we have John and Courtney Brown with us from Sense of Style. This has been a long time just because life has been insane.
Because it's 2020, right?
Is it still 2020?
You don't even have to say insane. You just have to say because it's 2020.
Because it's 2020.
And I think everybody just knows.
You'd be like, yes.
It's a mess.
So thank you guys for sticking with us. And we're finally together.
Well, thank you for being persistent and for having us.
So we're excited. So this was another introduction from Betsy. So Betsy's circle continues to grow on the podcast.
Betsy's amazing.
I know.
She's a great connector. That is one of her strengths.
Well, it's so funny. We had done something and she's like, do you want anyone else for your podcast? I was like, yeah, if you have any friends. And within like minutes, I think I had like 5 different text threads going from all of these people. And she was just connecting us. And it's like, oh, well, that was nice of you.
You know what I love about Betsy? She's so abundant-minded. Like,
yeah.
She just wants everyone to succeed.
For sure.
I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
She and I are in our, we have a mastermind of female business owners together. We have a couple different ones. And that is just her to her core, where she is willing to share information freely. She's always like, can we share numbers? And I don't know, in the entrepreneurial space, people do not share numbers. And she's like, we call it friend DA. Right? Not NDA, but friend DA. So it stays within the circle.
Yeah.
But it allows us to have a space to be really open and honest with people and talk about our struggles and what's going well. And Betsy is always the first to raise her hand and say, I know I have a solution for you. I have your person. And I've really appreciated her friendship in that realm.
She's kind of like the connector from The Go-Giver, Gus. Have you guys read The Go-Giver? It's another book for you.
Okay.
Go-Giver.
Yes,
I've read The Giver.
So The Go-Giver, all-time favorite book.
I've also read The Giving Tree.
The Giving Tree.
Yeah.
I read that last week.
Dr. Seuss.
Good
Not
job.
Dr. Seuss,
Yeah.
Shel Silverstein.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Wrong.
I'm writing that down.
What, the Giving Tree? You're
Yes.
writing it down?
Go-Giver/Giving Tree.
So guys, Sense of Style. I want to just, how did it all begin? I've kind of read a little bit about it. I've watched a bunch of the kind of interviews you guys have done, but for maybe anyone who's isn't familiar with you, give us a quick background on what Sense of Style is.
So Sense of Style is a women's fashion brand, e-commerce 100%, and we started all the way back in 2007.
You guys are so old.
Super old, especially in the e-commerce space. But I was a young mom. We had just adopted our oldest, and I was looking for a creative outlet for my passions. And I thought, I've always loved fashion. I see a hole in the market for affordable, accessible, kind of curated fashion for the everyday woman. Somebody that loves fashion but is not going to spend a lot. And I began.
So you're perfect for Utah.
It's a good market for us.
Stop it, Andrew. I don't like that. You stop it.
It's a fair point.
No,
It's a fair point.
well, here's what I always say, because I get people saying this about the restaurant all the time. Like, you're in Utah. Because, like meat and barbecue is expensive. But I always kind of, what's the word? Can you say rebut? Is that a fancy word? I don't think it's a real word.
Quit trying to be
How about
fancy.
repudiate? Repudiate.
I repudiate.
There you go.
Thank you. That's a much better word. Man, I sound so smart.
Got your back.
So edit out everything that up to, so I repudiate. So right there. I think it's a value-driven spot, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I don't think we're cheap. I think if they feel like they're getting what they're paying for, they'll pay the money.
Do you know, it was just an easy joke, okay?
So
get up on
Andrew,
your soapbox.
listen, it's fun to add a little.
No, but I
People
do
like arguing.
But I do think there's a fair point there of
Right.
the values, right? Utah has a unique set of values.
Right.
It can either come from the predominant religion or just the culture in general, where there are big families.
Right. Yeah.
We value lots of members of our family. We don't necessarily value, I don't know, things that you might in a bigger city, like expensive food, expensive clothes, and that's okay. It's just it's
the
different.
bigger family thing I don't think about. That's a
we
great
value
point.
industry and being
Right.
economical.
Yeah.
That's like a huge part of the Utah culture.
Right.
So I don't take offense to that at all.
I don't really either. I think it's fun to have a little bit of
a little
strife
banter
on the show.
around it.
People are like, oh, here we go. It's like the news, they put all the negative things on there. Keep us watching.
So
So
before then, were you in business? Were you entrepreneurs before you adopted your daughter?
So John has always been an entrepreneur. Out of BYU, he started a import company with my uncle and brother-in-laws that he did for 10 years. So he didn't join Sense of Style until 2014.
Officially, full time. So like at 2004, we started an import company. I remember in my finals class, I made my biggest sale at the point and had to drive to St. George to deliver it. And I almost flunked out of college because I didn't make it back in time for the final because I had traffic. I was at the business school at the time and the professor was like,
shouldn't you get an A for that?
Yeah, it's okay.
For sure. That's
it
cool.
all worked out. But like that was from 2004 through 2014, I worked at my own startup while she was hustling on the side.
Okay.
So Sense of Style kind of just started as a side hustle, a hobby for me, something I could do on the side. And we didn't start 100% e-commerce. We started doing like little like pop-up shops in people's homes with fashion because I had no business plan, no startup capital. I just started.
So like how did you find clothes? Because people come up with ideas all the time. Like how are you? Because 2007,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. The internet was not what it is today back then. And so like, how did you find stuff?
So and this only lasted probably like 3 or 4 months. I literally was like bargain shopping and buying off like the clearance racks at Target and reselling it. But then I started learning about wholesale buying. Right. And it was just an evolution, right? And then I started going to buying shows, right? And buying there. And then we started doing our own production. But the big pivot for Sense of Style came in late 2011, early 2012, when I realized that the business plan I had started, so we were doing all these boutique pop-up shops in people's homes, and I had stylists that were taking the product and doing this, and I realized that what I had created was not scalable. So in 2011, 2012, I realized that I'd never taken a paycheck. I had never done more
Since
than
you started?
Said I'd started. I'd never done more than $150,000 a year in revenue, and I was $50,000 in debt, and I knew I had to make a change. So I knew I could either walk away and be done, or I could believe in the vision of what I've started and pivot, take my rev to zero, which I did, start all over, and went 100% online.
What kept you going all those years with taking nothing home?
Well, there's people do things for other things than money.
The woman has grit. I'm going to tell you that right now. The woman has grit.
What a perfect show to be on.
I did it because I needed an outlet. I needed something for me, right. Something that I felt like I was contributing. And I say this a lot because speaking of values, right? Money is one thing to value, but contribution and helping women feel better about who they are, that's another value. And that's probably the thing that kept me going. And the vision I had that if I could scale this, I could help a lot more women. And that's what we did. So in 2012, we pivoted and we went 100% online, and we took on an influencer and affiliate marketing approach when that was pretty new.
I was going to say, at that time, that wasn't really a thing yet.
No, it was just beginning. It kind of all blogging and influencer marketing really came out of 2008. That's really when it began. So I was, we put ourselves out there, and to be fair, I met a lot of the right people at the right time, and they have become dear, dear friends to this day.
It's amazing how if you work hard, that happens.
Yeah.
Right?
And also if you value relationships,
right.
And you really create a value first relationship. And that's something
right.
Courtney's always been really good at, is it's not like, hey, can you do this for me? It's like, hey, what can I do for you? Let's do something together that really creates value for both of us.
Sure. So
we grew our fashion brand, and we grew it pretty substantially, 300% growth for those first several years. The type of growth that brings you to your knees, and you're wondering why in the world you're doing what you're doing.
Were you selling more? Were you selling different stuff at that time, or is all the same?
Same. Just a different marketing approach and taking it online and becoming e-commerce experts. And then I will say that 2 years ago, in 2 years ago. Oh my gosh. Yeah. At the beginning of 18, we realized we needed to pivot again. So I happened to choose probably the noisiest of the e-commerce spaces in women's affordable boutique fashion, right? Super low barrier to entry. Anybody can start it. In fact, in Utah, many have, right?
Right.
So we're like, what differentiates us? Where can we pivot again? And we realized we had become e-commerce experts, but also operational experts, from sourcing to development to fulfillment. John spent 20 years in sourcing. I've now spent 13. And we thought, what if we could help more women brands? And that's how we spun off our sister company of Be Fulfilled. And I'll let John talk about that because he runs it on the day-to-day.
Yeah. So Be Fulfilled really was, in 2014 when I came online 100%, I was always in the background helping with the technology, making sure our contracts with our shipping partners were the best we can get them.
And you knew how to do all this from the import business.
Well,
already, right?
Some of it was from the import. Also, my background was information systems. So connecting how to put your computer software or create a software or have a software that works for your business flow. So that's always been my kind of specialty. And with Sense of Style, I was always involved from the get-go, how we set up our systems.
Right.
And I was at the point where in 2014, when I came on board, I was the COO. So I really just focused operations. And we really dialed in our systems to be very clean and very, very efficient, because Courtney was selling affordable fashion. You didn't have an extra quarter or a dollar
right.
per shipment to be inefficient. So we had to really focus on that. And we saw that as something unique that we wanted to build as a platform to help a lot of our friends in the space. This is 2018. All of a sudden, you're seeing influencers wanting to create their own product lines because the space has evolved to that point.
Right.
But they're out trying to do it themselves. They don't know how to source it, and they're getting really crappy product. They don't know how to ship it. They're overwhelmed. We're like, hey, it's our purpose at Sense of Style is to empower women. What if we spun off a company that does that in a different way? Instead of in clothing, we're helping actual influencers and entrepreneurs do that for themselves. And it's been a lot of fun.
So we have these two companies now, Sense of Style, that is kind of this anchor brand behind Be Fulfilled, where we then help because we've already taken on so many of the operational costs with Sense of Style, right? The building, the employees, all of that. We can
all the
bring
technology
all
to get all that stuff.
Software platforms.
Yeah.
Shipping alone is the worst thing in the world.
And my favorite thing is, Cam, is that when people say, no, I'll do my own shipping in my basement, I'm like,
have fun.
Go for it. Here's my number.
Have
Call
fun.
me in a week.
when you're done.
You will not want to do that again.
It's so true. I mean, just shipping, I'll ship a brisket to people sometimes, a friend or whatever. And I'm like, it is such a pain in the rear to ship something. I can't even imagine shipping all this other stuff. And so anyway, yeah.
So it's really fun. We get to take women's companies and help them. We're like the back end operations team. Help them on the sourcing side, help them on the shipping and fulfillment side, and on the customer care, so they can go and focus on what they're really good at, which is the sales and marketing.
It's who, not how, right? Who's going to solve it, not how am I going to solve it?
Exactly.
So what was your first item you bought and sold when you first got started? Do you remember?
Word. Well, we were initially we only did accessories.
Okay. Why?
Because there's no sizes in accessories.
Okay, there you go.
Right.
Oh, yes, there are.
It fits a wider
If I
range
see
of
that
individuals.
OSFA, I just shut the computer. No,
I'm with you. I got a big head. One size does not fit me.
It does not.
It does not fit
I have
me.
a size 8 head. So it's a little hard.
My hat here is barely hanging on.
I was going to say, you're at 2
Buy a
clips.
thread.
That's like when I wear a trucker hat like that, I'm usually at 2. So that's impressive. You do have a big head.
It's a big head.
We're brothers.
I can remember the first product that went viral for us that changed my life.
Okay.
The first product I sold was probably a piece of jewelry. But in 2013, in November, so Christmas time, holiday shopping season, in 72 hours, we did 20% of our year's revenue.
Oh, geez. How?
Exactly.
Wow.
On a chevron scarf.
A scarf?
One scarf in a probably 15 different colors and variants.
These were like NASCAR fans.
These were women in 2013.
And Chevron is a pattern, Cam, just so we're on the same page.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, I thought the gas station.
No, it was a pattern. So, and that literally changed our life. Those 72 hours allowed us to scale and grow. We've been bootstrapped from the start, never taken on anything other than a little debt financing, but those 72 hours allowed us to scale and grow for the next 2 or 3 years.
Isn't that weird? So was it the marketing of the scarf? Was it like,
what happened?
So when you found the scarf, were you like, oh, this is the one?
Yeah, I was.
Really?
But I want John to talk about this because right product, right people, right price, right?
Yeah. So Courtney did a really good job. She's shying away from it a little bit because she was building these affiliate and influencer relationships.
Right.
And she had this idea, like, I want to price this aggressively. I want to get this out there. It was a new trend that was emerging, and she saw it, and she has a good vision for that kind of stuff.
As far as the design?
The design.
The affiliate? Okay.
The design. And so she put it out there, and it just went like wildfire. And we were like, whoa. And I remember it took us 30 days to fulfill that. We were still operating out of our house in West Jordan. We had our whole neighborhood at our house doing filling packages. We had our front yard with tables. Like,
which is why when they say I'll ship it myself, you're like,
yeah, I've been there. I've shipped
So
my
you wish
basement
you had
before,
me
buddy.
fulfilled back then.
Yeah, exactly. And so she just really timed it right, had the vision, and executed it in a beautiful way. And it like I said, it's changed our life. From that point on, things have never been the same.
So a lot of times when that happens, though, that will actually put companies out of business because they won't have the inventory or the systems to back up and fulfill all those orders. And so then the experience from the customer is so negative, they don't come back again.
Yeah.
And so how did you guys avoid that?
Courtney's body language right now, I'm really excited to hear this answer. Because the second Andrew started talking about that, there was just this, like, you sat up a little straighter, like,
it's like I
let me
locked
tell you what I did,
like,
youngster.
Here you go.
Like, yeah, I'm excited to hear this. I like to explain that because I feel like with our awesome iPhone camera, like 20 people are going to actually watch this. But that's why we need cameras, because just to see that, just to kind of see that body language, like, I don't know. I love that. I wish people could see it.
Talk about the school of hard knocks. Did we do it 100% right? Hell no. We did it wrong. But what did I learn out of that allowed me to do it so much better moving forward? Right? Like, did we have people mad that it took 30 days to fulfill? Yes. But did they still take the product? Yes. Did we try to be proactive in telling them what occurred? And, oh my goodness, we've never had this experience. This has never happened to us before. Please bear with us. Yes. Are people kinder when you do that? Yes. So, we had to become completely creative. We had to take these and realize that systems fail when there's too much volume and velocity. And so we had to get creative. Like John said, the things that spun out of that, when we got our neighbors involved, this entire new way to do operations started opening up to us because we started realizing, oh my word, Utah has so many women that are talented and willing and want to be a part of something, but cannot work within the traditional 9-to-5 schedule. How can we utilize that? We started having neighbors saying, I can't work from your house anymore, but can I take 50 and fulfill them from home? And we're like, oh yeah, we'll pay you a batch rate. And guess how we continued to scale our operations for years to come based on that model. We would send product home in bulk shipments so women could make money during those Netflix hours, fulfilling packages. And
hold on. Netflix hours.
It's a new TM. You didn't see the little TM.
I was going to say, this is awesome. What are this is like nap time?
Nap time. I call it the crumbs of time. Those Netflix hours. Or nap time, right? Like, right. So after the kids are down at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and and she can make some money sitting in front watching,
Grey's Anatomy.
Uh-huh. You're there. You're with me.
Yeah. Or The Resident right now.
Oh,
sure.
It's some skanky doctor show, right?
Don't not.
Hey, come on. When you have McSteamy and McDreamy, It's skanky. Okay. No, I liked Grey's Anatomy, but what is it about the doctor shows? But no, Netflix time. That is a really cool.
That is cool.
You should trademark that.
Well, I don't think Netflix would allow me to, but
they're making it up.
Still. But this idea that they could they could make some extra money, and we could get creative about how we fulfilled the product that was promised, and it was a win-win on both sides. So those 72 hours required creativity and opened us up to new ways of doing business that we would not have seen otherwise.
Yeah. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the failures during that
Oh, man.
viral moment.
Oh, man.
Every one of our systems broke.
Every single one.
I mean, I remember being in an accounting meeting that morning with who we had like a part-time CFO who was a buddy of mine. And I looked at the numbers, and then half an hour later, I was like, what just happened? Like, we were in a meeting, and it was like the biggest day of all time in a period of 1 hour. And then from that point on, a couple things happened. Every one of our printers overheated. I would wake up at like 4 a.m. and hit print on the printer, and it was a kind of slow printer. It would be printing from 4 a.m. to midnight every day, and we're still behind. And then
just printing shipping labels.
Oh, man. And then our merchant account called us and froze over $100,000.
Over $100,000. They froze it because they didn't believe it was true sales.
It's like, this is too much money according to your historical. And we're like, we have never had we have very minimal chargebacks. Chargebacks happen to everyone. We have perfect history. And I remember at that point, since then have changed, merchant accounts. I'm like, I want people who are partnered with you, who are willing to call you and have a conversation.
Like, sir, have you seen this scarf?
Yeah, exactly. It's Chevron scarf. These are NASCAR fans. They are rabid fans.
It's Alabama, Mississippi. You can see it right on the statement.
So it really kind of...
You don't know how right that is in what you're saying right now. You just hit the nail on the head.
So it really kind of, we learned a lot from that scenario.
Yeah, for sure. So something that stands out that you keep talking about, and I think that's one of the interesting things of this podcast, is when Cam and I interview a lot of kind of the female business owners that, they always talk about how they wanting to help women. Like, it sounds like that's been with you from day one, and why? Like, why not just grow a business? Why emphasis on specifically like helping women and all this kind of stuff?
It's the origin story. I was the woman in need of some personal empowerment. I was the woman thinking I needed a creative outlet. Yeah. It was me. And I saw what it did for me and my own personal confidence, for my family, for my life. And I thought, how can I help others do this? Women's entrepreneurship often comes out of a different place than men's. This is my experience. Women's entrepreneurship is often accidental, whereas men often is like from school. They're like, I'm going to start a company and I know what it is. And women are like, I kind of happened into this.
Yeah.
I had an idea and I went with it. And who did I know to talk to about it? It was my sister and my best friend and my neighbor. And they were all behind me. So we started. It wasn't, hey, I called my buddy from business school and we know these VC guys. When's that ever been the story you've heard from women's entrepreneurship?
No, this is the story. I wanted to go to Target and buy whatever I wanted.
Right.
And so I sold enough moccasins, or I made a bedding, or I did this.
Right. For me, my own money, my own contribution, my own thing.
For me, it was less about money and it was more about contribution.
Yeah.
Feeling like I was a part of something. And when I couldn't find it already out there, I went and created it.
Where'd that come from? I mean, growing up, did you have examples of that?
I really did. My mom will not admit this, but she was my example of side hustle and women's entrepreneurship 100%. My dad was a tax attorney, so very traditional. My mother is a secret entrepreneur. She's this artist. She will also not use that word in regards to herself. But growing up, she always was doing something. She rented prom dresses out of our home. She painted barrettes and sold them. She was always doing a side hustle. And it was like, to me, that was my example of women's entrepreneurship. My first job was for a lady where she was a female entrepreneur, at-home mom doing something on the side, and she did kids' birthday parties. So I dressed up as Cinderella and Winnie the Pooh and did animal balloons and face painting. And I learned from these women that you can create it for yourself. And along the way, you can help others.
Well, and only women, because, you know, motherhood, the amount of products that you can create, you know, for that landscape, because being a mom is tough, but it's, you talk about the most creative, like put a Band-Aid on it, fix the problem in a hurry, you know, industrial person is a mom, right? Which is so cool. So, you know, I've talked to my wife about this a bunch. It's like, if you weren't a mom, you wouldn't have that idea. And that's such a cool thing. Like, she thinks of things all the time. Like, I just need to invent this or that, you know, something for the car because the kids are always making a mess, and it's such a fascinating thing to watch because, I mean, I always say I couldn't do what she does in a million years.
Well, it's interesting, especially here, right? In Utah,
right.
In our culture, right? You have highly educated women, highly educated, that are huge, highly creative, problem solvers, industrious. I have this belief that there is more untapped potential in this demographic. And what a beautiful day and age we live in, that via technology,
we're starting to see it.
We're starting to see it.
Right.
And that they're getting to use their creativity in those Netflix hours, in those crumbs of time.
Gosh, I love that saying.
Whether
hours, it's so good.
Whether that is becoming a content creator and making people laugh online, or creating a physical product, or writing a novel. This day and age, this digital day and age is allowing for it. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal and beautiful to be a part of.
Very cool, man. And you've been doing it for a long time. So you're kind of the queen bee. I didn't realize you guys had been at it for so long. Because, I mean, doing what you're doing and starting it when you started it, even, I mean, it's more normal now, right? Mm-hmm. But back then it was even more non-traditional. Right, which to me makes it a little bit more badass.
Well, thank you. That's kind of you.
Sorry.
I love it.
Well,
she's pretty badass.
I have been doing it for a long time, so I've seen it evolve a lot. The affiliate influencer space has evolved insane in the last decade, right? And so has the market. You guys, in 2007, when I began, Target wasn't even what Target is now. They hadn't gone through their evolution. There wasn't this idea of cool, chic, affordable product, right? And then we've watched these big boxes. I mean, how many have gone down in the last year?
Right.
The market continues to go smaller and smaller and smaller and more niche, which is really super cool. And that's where we were like, there's an opportunity for us to help more women produce their own products. And that's where Be Fulfilled came in.
Yeah, we've seen a fracturing of the market from traditional brands like, you know, Adidas, Nike. I'm just throwing out some really generic names to like now there's Rhone, you know, they do athletic gear. There's 3 or 4 different companies like that. It's gone super niche, and it's because of Facebook marketing, because of influencers, because of this new way to target people. It's completely disrupted.
It's like the music industry.
Exactly.
Right? But it's happening at a little bit of a slower pace,
right?
And it's not as easy to see as the music industry, right? Necessarily, but I think speaking of current times, COVID was a seismic shift, and I don't think retail will ever be the same,
right?
And so there isn't even a bigger opportunity online now than there ever has been. More people are staying at home, choosing not to go to the store, choosing to shop from home. It's just the nature of the post-COVID world we're going to live in. And so we feel like we're positioned perfectly to help more and more people create their products, put them online, ship them, service them, and let that virtuous cycle just continue to grow where we both help each other. And so it's been a lot of fun.
You know, they say that, speaking of the music industry, right? Like, no one will ever sell the number of albums NSYNC sold at the end of the 90s, the beginning of the 2000s. There'll never be another
NSYNC, obviously.
But it just won't happen again, right? Because of this democratization right? This going from super big and a few people holding that power to many, many. And isn't that beautiful? This all this pie, we don't need the whole pie. We just need a small piece of it. And it allows more people to be creative and put their stamp and mark, and for people to find their people, the ones they relate to, the ones that are speaking their truth and telling their story, that they're like, you know what? I like that, Cam and Andrew. They speak to me. I like what they're doing.
How did you have the confidence to make that first shift back in 2011, 12? Like what was it about that time that you were like, no, I'm going to zero. We're starting over. Scratch this. We're going. And not only that, like, jump on. I got you.
Terrifying, first of all. 110% terrifying. I thought I was going to fail. And I almost did. This is vulnerable, but literally the only thing that kept me going was that I had borrowed $10,000 from my mom, and she's a widow and she'd taken a chance on me. So I'm like, so I'm just going to leave my mom high and dry. Are you kidding? That's not the type of person I am. And I was like, this is painful. This is hard decisions. It's uncomfortable. Letting go of 40 stylists and telling them that we're not doing it that way anymore. Having to admit that the thing you created didn't work. That's super painful. But I had a belief in what it was doing for women. It kept me going. And I knew I needed to take care of the obligations I had created.
How long was this decision process for you? Like, how long were you kind of sitting on that before you did something? Was it that long?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a series of events, and I want to kind of prime it a little bit and let you finish the story. So our two oldest children are adopted. And in 2011, she was pregnant with our first biological child, and she was put on bed rest. And Courtney is a hustler and wants to have her hands in things.
Courtney on bed rest.
Yeah, it was rough.
Good mix.
And she kind of grabbed her computer and be like, you know what? I'm going to learn affiliate marketing on bed rest. I'm going to do something with this bed rest. And she just dove headfirst into affiliate marketing. And I remember to sign up for the program was like $600, $700. And we're like, oh, that's a lot of money. Do we want to like invest in the future with the $700 to like sign up for this program? That was part of the affiliate network. And we did it. And she figured it out. Like, Courtney's the type of person, give her the rules. How do you win? And she will then figure out how to win. Like, that's kind of her personality. So it was, in all things, bed rest that kind of helped push you in that direction.
That's a true story. So it's, again, you can't separate this idea, Cam, of me being a mom and wanting to show up and be a mom and mother, and also, and
mm-hmm.
be a businesswoman and have a career and make my mark and impact on this world. And he's absolutely right. That's what happened. But to be fair, I had a really good friend that was running the affiliate marketing. So those who don't know what affiliate marketing is, when an influencer, blogger, someone talks about a product or brand and they make a sale, they get a commission, right? It's called affiliate marketing. And it's set up beforehand and there's agreements and all of that. But I had a really good friend, my closest friend from all growing up. So remember, we're coming out of 2008 and blogging was just kind of this family thing, right?
Their blogspot.
Right?
Yeah. We had one of those.
Yeah, for sure.
And this group of moms figured out, and the big ones that came out of 2008 were these frugal living coupon bloggers, right? That they figured out, I can actually make money doing this. Coupons.com will pay me pennies, right? So I had a really good friend who was running the affiliate marketing program at one of the country's biggest coupon frugal living sites. And she's like, you need to check out affiliate marketing because you are primed for it, especially right now. Sense of style, affordable fashion. People don't have a ton of money to spend, but they still want to look great. Figure it out. And it was the best piece of advice I could have received because I dove in and it changed my life. It took me on a totally different trajectory, right? We've been named multiple years in a row, one of the fastest growing companies in the state of Utah. We've employed lots and lots of women, and we've shipped millions of packages. And I believe in a lot of senses it was a calling. I think we get called to a few things in our life. Those something beyond us nudges us and is like, you got to do this. You're supposed to do this. Call it God, call it the universe, call it life. You got to do this. And we do it, and we kind of flow with it, and all of a sudden it changes things.
I'm reading a book. I just finished it, The Big Leap, and it talks about your zone of excellence, the zone of genius.
Yeah.
And it's like you took yourself from one to the other with that idea of the affiliate marketing.
Well, and I'm interested in the marriage during the whole time. Like, that's what kind of keeps popping into my head, because I'm kind of putting myself in your shoes. You're working, like, you've got your business going. You borrowed the money from your mom during, like, how does that all go? Does it get to the point where you're just like, honey, slow down? Like, because before, like, losing a little bit of money, like, what was the marriage like at that time, if that's not too personal of a question?
No, but so you guys know we had a podcast for a while called Married to Business, where we discussed that and interviewed other couples that work together, because that's a challenge. And most people don't understand. And
that's one word.
Yes. From my perspective, most men struggle with, like, how do you work with your wife? I could never work with her. Right. And that's usually a big question I get.
Wait, let's be clear. Did they say with?
For.
Oh, geez.
Look at this. Trying to mic drop over here.
You walked yourself into that one.
She is just sitting here with this little grin pointing at him right now.
I think the language is important.
For sure.
And we don't use that language personally, but that is usually what they say to you. This is a partnership. We look at it as a privilege and not a burden. And I'll let you keep going.
All right. So
she'll let you keep going.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
You have 1 minute. Wrap it up.
Yes.
Sorry.
Swirl. Wrap it up. So in 2004, started the company out of college. It really went gangbusters through 2008, and then the housing crisis hit, and we were part of the housing industry. And so it was a struggle. And I was the VP of sales, traveled all over the country and world, just like building a business, and it went really well for a while. And I wasn't home a lot. She was home with our newly adopted daughter, and she needed something. And I saw that. I saw she needed something. And I've been an entrepreneur from, like,
how long had you guys been married before you adopted?
3 years.
Was that right? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's a joke. Here's a side note here. When we went to go meet the birth aunt in Texas, I wasn't 25 and I couldn't rent a car.
Oh,
so
dear.
That's how young we were. We were a little like, let's get on with life. This needs to happen. And there's
or I was that way, and he went along.
I'm being kind and saying we, okay? And so
language is important.
Like exactly. Thank you, Cam. Thank you. So, anyways, I was doing my thing. She wanted to do it, and to me that was important, right? To give her that space to do that, not to give it, but to, like, support. Right. And I supported a lot in the back end. We would make trips to Idaho. Our basement was full of product. I would move it around, and I was trying to be as supportive as I could. There got to a point in 2012 where my business was really struggling because we are about to get sold to another VC firm. Things were kind of up in the air, and we didn't have we had not a lot of income because she had just shifted to online. And I think she saw that, and she doubled down in online sales. And that's when things went viral, and all of a sudden our life changed. Like, it shifted. And for me, it was seeing the value and the happiness and the contentment and the fulfillment that in her that, like, just made me a true believer. Like, whatever I can do to support this. Now, it wasn't always easy, right? There's plenty of fights, plenty of other things that we went through of, like, well, why are you doing this? I have to be in Dallas. She's like, well, I have to be in Idaho. Who's going to watch your kids? I'm like, I don't know. You figure that out. And I would leave, and, we'd get in fights over that. So that happened. Like,
sure,
plenty of stuff happened when you have two big competing things that are happening and you have children in the mix. It's a struggle. Like, there's no doubt about it. But for the most part, it's just been good communication and honoring each other as partners and as equals. that has really helped us through this path.
How did you learn to do that? To your point, like
I was just going to ask the same thing.
Like that day, hey, I have to go here, you have to go here. Like, how did you learn how to navigate that?
I don't know that there's an easy answer other than like, for the first little while, I was like, no, I'm going. I have to do this. And I remember a few events that occurring, and they were pretty rough for us. As this is where we kind of got to 2014, is like, we have to make a decision. What are we going to do here? Sense of Style is growing like crazy. My business I was at was now we'd sold to new ownership, and they had different direction. And it was just like, let's make the leap. And it was scary. Like, we had talked about it for 2 years about me quitting my job and going full-time at Sense of Style. But that was scary for me, as up to that point, the primary kind of, how you want to say it, like earner in the family. It was a scary thing for me, both like from an ego perspective, also from a like, how do I do something that adds value to this household, because that's important.
How am I going to go help a bunch of women?
Right. And it took a lot of work and a lot of thinking about it, a lot of conversation between her and I for a good 2 years before I was able to get there to the point of like, yes, I believe in this. And then we really started to do vision work, purpose, values, and mission, and really dive into why are we doing this? And we went to a conference, a little less of a conference, more of like a consulting thing in Arizona, where for 2 days, her and I, all we did was work on our vision. And we came out of it with something that was from her origin story, and I believed in because I saw it, but also something that I felt I can get behind this. This is something that's more than like I'm selling stuff online. It's like, no, this is my purpose, to help other women, because I see it, because I've seen the change in my wife of who she's become with that little bit of like just purpose in her life. And if we can give that to more women, that's a beautiful thing.
That's the coolest thing for me, to hear these types of stories, because from the outside looking in, it looks like an online clothing store. Like from my perspective, like I wouldn't know the passion behind it. As Cam said, like when you start talking about it, she, it's like she's getting ready to get going for something. And it's so cool to see and hear that, because it adds so much to the business, but it also is such a huge indicator of why you've had the success you've had, because you have this burning why inside of you. But how long had you, Courtney, kind of had the idea of bringing and wanting to work together with John kind of full time with Sense of Style?
So to be fair, we've worked in some capacity together since the beginning of our marriage. So it wasn't a completely new idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first time. Like John said, he was integral in the back ends, doing systems and technologies for years, making sure it was going. I can remember when we were deciding what platform to go online with. We had been on like kind of a cheap little free platform for a while. And he's like, keep hearing about this thing called Shopify. This is one of his inherent gifts, is he knows technologies. It's brand new. I don't know. I just have this gut feeling we need to be on Shopify. Well, here we are.
That was a good move.
How many years later? We were Shopify's 5,000th store.
Wow.
And Shopify now has
over 1 million.
Almost 2.
Oh, it's blown up. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they're a multi-billion-dollar company. So John's always been involved. We've always worked together in some capacity. So when we decided to do it full time, it was a fairly natural thing. The other advice we give couples is, when we talk about this, is like, no conversation is ever off the table with us. We are and it's always been that way. I mean, we have things outside of business that are tough in our lives.
For sure.
And so does everyone. But we've been able to learn that we can talk about it, even if it's really super duper hard, and still show up for one another. And that's helped in business when we're like, okay, we have to talk about this, and this doesn't mean I don't love you but we have to be willing to have this conversation. The other piece of advice we always give is, we have our areas of expertise, and that person is in charge of that area. I don't get to step in in his day-to-day responsibilities. He can inform me about them, but I don't get to step in and overstep. And the same goes for and we've defined those outright. These are my responsibilities. These are yours.
Is there like a code word, like if somebody's stepping over the line a little bit, like a safe word?
There is.
Is there really? What is it? Can you share it?
We call it, we say, what do we say?
Safe word, I like that. Ponies.
Ponies.
We say that we have to respect the stop. So if we're ever having a conversation and this is just for John and Courtney Brown's marriage, and we're in a business conversation and we are just so frustrated, one or the other of us. If one of us says, I'm done, stop, the other has to respect it. And we have to be like, we can revisit this at another time, but it's too heated right now. It's not good for us as a couple. We can revisit it. And we've gotten pretty good at that.
And, there's rarely anything that needs to be settled in that moment. Most things with time, a little bit of distance, either solve themselves or you have a little more space from them.
As soon as the emotion dies down a little bit, logic comes back into the arrangement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys, just curious, do you have boundaries on when you're allowed to talk about business? Like, is there couple time, business time, family time, business time, or is it all one?
So we joke about this a lot because are you guys Parks and Recs fans?
I've definitely watched it. I would say I'm an Office fan.
Okay, we love The Office, but there's this great Parks and Rec where Leslie and Adam Scott, I forget his name in the show. Anyways, they work together in their family and they make a rule that they can only talk on City Hall property. And she wants to talk so bad that she just keeps running around and saying she's on City Hall property. And that's kind of John and I, right?
She's Leslie Knope.
I'm Leslie Knope. She's
not.
my spirit animal, and John is not.
I can check out pretty easy. Yeah. I can disassociate pretty easy. That's just, I don't want to call it a skill, just personality. Like, I'm good. I don't need to talk about it right now.
So I wish I could say, yes, we have these boundaries and we've set them up and we only talk from 9 to 5 about business. Not a thing for us. Like, if we're being truly honest about that might be helpful. But especially in COVID, where we've been working primarily from home, those lines get really blurred. So we really just try to be respectful of the ask from your partner. Like, if John's like, I need to be done with work today, we're done with work today,
Well, it's like a good marriage is a partnership, right? There's not one job more important than the other job. So, for business, you can kind of translate that over, and each has its own role, specific jobs and duties, and
where do you guys learn the tools? Like, where have you guys? I mean, are these just kind of self-created? Books, marriage counseling. I mean, we go to marriage counseling quite a bit, and I don't work with my wife. If I worked with my wife, I would almost have to hire our marriage counselor, I think, to be on staff.
So we literally hired a president last year because neither of our strengths is managerial finance, right? I'm more the creative. John's the ops guy, ops and sales. I sit in a more creative role, and that was really lacking, and it was causing a lot of division and pain and hurt in our marriage.
We may or may not have gotten an argument on the way here about this exact topic. I'm just putting that out there,
But like, we did that knowing not only because the business, it warranted it in the business, but it was good for John and Courtney to have someone else working on the day-to-day of the finance.
So a little more directly answering your question, Cam, is we listen to a lot of podcasts. We're reading a lot of books. During one of the major things that occurred when I came on board in 2014 full time, and we had this conversation up front. So I would go to work, I would come home, and then she would start working at night. And with kids at home, it was tough to really get the concentrated effort. And they were little kids, right? So we had this conversation about me kind of changing roles a little bit, and the language we were using is who's the lead parent. Not, we're both co-parents, but during this time when something occurs, like we talked about, someone has to go to Dallas, someone has to go to Idaho, who peels away first? And previously that was her. And that was kind of a little bit of like my assumption, like, oh, I'm the man. You go. Of course you do it. I'm making the money.
Gender role. It's not supposed to be, right?
Exactly. And there was a little bit tied up in that, and I had to really work through that. And then as we made the transition, we had a conversation that I would become the lead parent. In 2014, because she was the CEO and I was working the back end. I had more flexibility to be around. And I had to embrace that. And it was something that took me a little bit to get there, but honestly, it was a huge opportunity for me to connect with my children and to become a better father. And I look at those years between like pretty much 2014 and about 2018, I think is when I was the primary lead parent. And I really enjoyed that time. I really enjoyed it. And so like, I'm grateful for that connection with my kids. And I have a really close relationship with my kids because I spent that time and that effort to be there for them as the primary caregiver.
And then in 18, we had another conversation as we started Be Fulfilled, and we knew John was going to take a bigger role there as the president and really building it. And we had a more established team at Sense of Style, that then those roles would shift again. And I would walk back into that lead parent role. And I guess the thing that's worked for us is being willing to be fluid and not think that because we talked about it once, that's how it always is going to be.
For sure.
And be open and willing to have the conversation, and that how it looked 10 years ago and how it looks today isn't necessarily how it will always look.
Right. And not just work. I mean, as people, right? Mm-hmm. I think I'm married to wife number 6 and she's married to her husband number 10, right? Like,
yeah,
we grow, we change personally. Mm-hmm. And so, but you know, it's funny, the more I listen to you guys, I just keep having the thought that, you know, you talked about like calling, right? I feel like your marriage is that too. Like, you guys are the perfect pair for this. Like, you guys both bring such an integral piece to the puzzle. And I don't think a lot of people could do what you guys are doing. Like, I know that you say anybody can learn it or whatever, but you know, to hear you talk about the pride and ego, like, that's a very honest and awesome thing for you to say, because I would feel the same way. Like, especially if I own my own business, generally I'm the pride. I can honestly say it has nothing to do with the gender identity, right? I don't feel like because I'm the man, I'm the one that's supposed to be working and earning money. Sometimes I say it because I would suck at being a mom. Like, she's so much better at that than I am. But at the same time, it is hard to lose that kind of sense of purpose and identity. And you got to be a pretty confident and secure dude to get to that point. And I think you deserve a lot of props for that too. And so I think you guys have so much to teach all of us. I mean, seriously, listening to you guys, like how you kind of define your limits, like the lead parent Netflix hour. I mean, you guys, I'll be first in line to buy the book. I hope you guys plan on writing one day.
She's writing one.
Seriously, what you guys have accomplished just as a marriage and a family is...
Well, and to be able to step
amazing.
into it, like you said, like you turned into mom to CEO, and it sounds like as you started Be Fulfilled, maybe you've kind of gone back to lead parent.
I have.
You know, and to be able to transition back and forth and not kind of, how do you say it? Not be identified or defined by what it is you're doing, but as like a person, right? Whether it's a CEO or a mom, like, you're still who you are. And you don't need that necessarily.
Well, I feel really strongly about this, is that we get to be complex individuals, and I get to be both. I'm not defined by one label. I'm defined by them all. And I want to give that space to myself. I want to give it to John. I want to give it to my children, and I wanted to give it to you guys. You know, you get to not only be, you know, strong men, but you get to have the full range of emotions around
for
life.
Sure. And you know, I think that's been really good for us. We've had such a strong, how do I want to say it? Like, the amount of like strong business women we've had on the podcast. I think with male hosts, it's been kind of cool to get those perspectives, right? And it's been good for us to see too. And so we do have so much to learn on. Up until a year ago, I didn't realize how important it was, like, to have that groundhog, like being a mom, Groundhog Day. Like, you gotta have a thing, and it's not just about money, right? It's just about,
because it doesn't have to be business. It can be anything, right?
Purpose of
it doesn't
some
have to be a business.
Right?
Like, just because a mom isn't a mom boss or has a business, that doesn't take away anything.
Exactly.
No, but you got to realize women have been doing this forever.
Yeah,
it just looks different,
What's
right?
your point? Like your mom, right?
And it doesn't have to be business. It might be like, I am so passionate about working out, or I'm so passionate about baking, right?
Oh, I wish that would happen.
Right? Like, these are my passions. This is what lights me up.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, it happens to be business and fashion. That really lights me up. And helping other women stand and own who they are. But that's just me. Something totally different, lights John up, and lights Cam up, and lights Andrew up. But we live in a better world when we follow the things that light us up.
Right.
It's so awesome.
And I want to say, like, it wasn't easy from a male perspective. Like, and still to this day, I have certain insecurities about it of like, oh, well, like when she said, oh, you work for me. And like, those are things that like we play with each other.
With their Tigress shirt on.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But like, it's taken a lot of internal kind of looking in like, all right, my identity for the last 10 years was this. How do I let go of that identity? Because that doesn't define me, kind of to what she said. There's a multitude of things that define me. And spending some time with my children, actually, I found a lot of beauty in that, and a lot of like a more sensitive side to myself that I hadn't really tapped into when I'm with my daughter or with my son or my other son. Like it's been a lot of work, and it's not always easy for every one of my friends or people I meet to understand that. They don't sometimes, just because of, call it what you want, the predominant culture of the United States is still predominantly a patriarchal culture, and that becomes difficult for everyone to understand because it's how your dad grew up or how your grandpa, and it's just like it just passed down. And so like it took a lot for me to get there, to be fair, and I'm not 100% there in all ways.
Like it's so beautiful for me to watch, because in so many ways John is a better nurturer than I am. Like, I'm being 100% honest in that, and I hope that doesn't offend you.
I'm offended.
Okay.
How could that be offended? That makes it just hotter.
Our kids, they prefer to go to him. He's nicer than me. Like that is one of his strengths. And so for him to deny that part of himself is just as unfair as for a woman to deny that, she likes to stand up and speak and be powerful, right? Like we get to explore these parts of ourselves. And I'm so grateful that John is my partner. He's incredible. Like, I'm going to get emotional, but like there aren't a lot of men that would live in and lean in and grow the way he has chosen to. And I briefly said this before, but like, it's such a privilege. And we really try to focus on that what we get to do every day, that we get to go through life together in business and as partners. That's a privilege. And I know it doesn't work for everyone, but I'm so grateful it works for us. And I'm grateful we work hard at having it work for us.
And one of the things to what you said is we've really had to focus on what we get to do and not what we don't get to do because of our working together, right? And starting from a place of gratitude has been a huge shift for us over the last.
What does that mean?
So, let me talk a little bit about our daily practice, right? We do what's called, why am I blanking on it?
Our foundational four.
Every day we do this, and I remember the name. Foundational four. We actually did it on the way here after our argument. We're like, all right, let's do the foundational four. Let's try to get back in a good headspace. And we talk about 3 things we're grateful for, 3 accomplishments, and 3 things we want to do for that day, and then kind of our intention for the day. And what that allows us to do is realize that we are privileged to get to work together, to get to do what we do. And yes, there's hard moments. Yes, there's lots of hard conversations, but never forgetting that overall it's a privilege and that we have an incredible opportunity to do something that most people don't get to. And to me, that's like the grease of being able to work together, is having a gratitude practice or being in a place of gratitude, so that you never like, oh, I wish you would have done this. Like, no, I'm so grateful that we get to drive to Orem on a Thursday to go to Bam Bam's and do this interview together. That's fun time we get to spend together. And so like, that's really been super helpful for me personally to focus on what I have, not what I potentially quote unquote don't have.
Yeah.
So the other practice we do, so we're very much into mindfulness, and we have developed these practices, I would say, over like the last 3 years, because I found myself coming from a place of scarcity and lack a lot. I had this moment driving to the office with John one morning, and I was just spewing negativity out of my mouth. It's a very unflattering story, but this is exactly what happened. Complaining, talking negatively about people and about subjects. And I just kind of, one of those moments where you kind of like just get space from yourself enough. And he was completely silent during the whole thing. Turned to him and I say, I'm being really negative, aren't I? And he's silent for a few seconds, and then all he said was,
I don't want to get in trouble. Like, shit.
I was going to say that
No.
was a loaded question.
Yes, it was a loaded question.
But remember when we said no conversation is off the table?
Right.
And we're so honest with each other, and all he said was yes. And then I got mad at him. But in that moment, I realized that I was coming in my life from a place of negativity, and I needed to change, and I needed to up my game. And so I started learning about gratitude and mindfulness and getting some space. And we've created these practices, and it has changed our life. I'm a happier person. I'm a more well-rounded person. And one of the other practices I want to just share that has helped us as a couple and in business is when something's going really bad, or we're having a really hard day, we look at each other and we say, what is the gift in this situation? What is the gift?
To your point, words matter. Words are so important to change the word from problem to gift. Just that little shift changes everything.
So we're living in this world, it's 2020, and it's gone like none of us thought. No one could have predicted what's occurring. And we could sit and we could talk about all of the bad. We could focus on it for days, and we could have conversations around it. Or we could say, what is the gift? What is the gift? Well, I've gotten more time with my sons and my daughter in the last 2 months than I have in years. We've learned how to bake bread. John and the boys, they're learning how to bake bread together.
Sourdough.
Yeah, you know it.
See? Yeah. I love sourdough. Everyone's learning how to make
Sourdough pancakes?
I love it.
Man.
Oh, man.
You know,
Sourdough.
we're resetting, we're slowing down, we're enjoying, we're gardening. Like, these are gifts coming out of this time. And sure, we could focus on all of the bad, and that's really easy. But when you're in a hard moment and you have to say, what's going good right now? It shifts your mindset and your focus. And all of a sudden you're like, things aren't quite as bad as I thought they were.
What you focus on expands, right?
Exactly.
So wherever you put the attention, that's where the energy flows. So do you have it's super random, way off topic. Do you remember the first time that you heard from a customer client woman, and like, cause your whole goal to empower women and to create this for them, like, do you remember the first time someone said like, you did it? Like, you did for me what you set out to do. Like, do you remember a moment?
I don't remember the first time.
Yeah.
But I've remembered moments.
Like where it was almost like, I'm doing it. Like I'm doing what I set out to do.
We have done this over the years on our company Slack channels that will share comments from customers. And there's one that I still have saved that was like, I decided to invest in me. I decided that I was just going to go out on a limb and buy, and it sounds so silly, but she's like, I was going to buy that sweater and I was going to invest in me. And I haven't done that in a really long time because I was waiting to lose the weight. But I just got it and I put it on and I liked who I was when I looked in the mirror. And it wasn't for someone else. It wasn't for my girlfriends or my husband, or it was for me. And I related so strongly to that. Because I've experienced it. Like, that's my story. I needed this. I would never have grown into the person that I am today without following that calling and creating Sense of Style. I wouldn't have had the opportunities, but I also, or the hardships, but I wouldn't have grown and built become a more well-rounded person without it. because I chose to start, to jump in, to try, to experience, to get super uncomfortable. And it's not just all rainbows and unicorns still. Like, there's hard, entrepreneurship is no joke. Someday I would love for someone to talk about mental health and entrepreneurship, because
So
it's a
important.
thing and nobody talks about it, because it's no joke. The highs are as high as you'll go and the lows are as low as you'll go.
Or blood pressure.
Right.
I learned last
But
week.
there's no break in entrepreneurship. There's, you
You don't get to go home
nonstop.
from work.
No.
Like,
Well,
even,
especially when you're married.
I was gonna say, like,
It's
that,
one
your
extra
partner, right?
It complicates things, right? And you have to, I've had to find my own self-practice, or, ways that I like to, get released. And for me, it's being in the mountains, being in the trails. We bought a Sprinter van 2 years ago, taking the family out, going out, just being outside. That's like what speaks to my soul, and it keeps me very grounded, so that I'm ready for the next week or the next month or whatever it is. But we all have to
gotta
find
stay
our
charged
ways.
somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys about, like, do you take vacations and just like,
We do.
and that's, I imagine when you travel, unless there's an emergency, it's like we shut off work.
I do.
Let's
Wait,
dig into this a little bit.
to be
more.
fair, I did. And
Right.
because as Be Fulfilled has really grown exponentially in the last 2 years, and I'm playing like I'm the president. It really everything passes through me. Where before, when she, CEO, I was a COO. If it wasn't operations, I didn't worry about it. It's like, oh, that's marketing. That's your problem. Now, if it's marketing, whatever, it's my problem. And I've seen it's given me a little bit different perspective on what she's gone through in the last 13
You can
years.
appreciate it more because you've experienced
Right.
it.
I'm experiencing it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Where in my, in the other company I started, I was the VP of sales, and then I was a COO, and now I'm here, the president. And it's like, oh, this is the shiz you've been dealing with that I was always had space from. And so it's given me a gratitude and appreciation for all the years she did that. And two, also made me understand the importance of taking a break or having space on occasion for my own mental health.
Well, and you bring up I think a hang up in my marriage, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate with this, is because ours is more of the traditional, right? She's at home full time with our 4 kids. I work full time. And sometimes it's hard because I think one advantage, we'll call it a gift, right, that you guys have in working together is just what you said, is you can understand each other's days, right? Sometimes I'll come home and Ashley's had a really, rough day with kids, and it's like, good, he's home. Blah. And she doesn't know that I had to let 2 people go, and sales are horrible, and, whatever else happened. So she can't really relate to my day because she just has no clue, what it is to do this. And so, I mean, it makes us have to communicate better and take a little bit of time. Like when I walk through the door, we both probably want to like just relax, but we can't just immediately like throw up on each other. Right. And so I think that is, I think that that's another gift that you guys have, is being able to kind of relate to each other's day and know how to kind of respond to that. And it's a tough thing.
One tool we picked up just recently, this is in the last 6 months, a Brene Brown tool of like, she talks about a story in her podcast. We're coming home and she wanted her husband, out of 0 to 100 to be at like an 80, but she was like at like a 20 or like a 10 or whatever, like just communicating that with each other. Like,
Right.
honey, I'm like at like a 10.
I need you to be 90.
I need you to be that 90. And if,
Sorry for my clarification. That means like I need to back off a little bit.
no, so like
10%
take over.
of
Like, you
right.
get home and actually.
So I'm at a 10 out of
100.
right? Okay, so I need you to step up.
Right. And so like saying 100 is 50-50 is the ideal, where you're both,
Right.
but sometimes because of your day, you're at a 20, they're at a,
I see.
And so having that conversation with each other when you're in tough moments of like,
It's a great idea.
I'm at a 10, you're at a 20. We have to figure this out because we have stuff that we have to do. Our kids need some support. So what are we going to do here? And having those conversations openly
Right.
has helped us, because sometimes neither of us are at 50%. And so we can't get to 100 as a family. And those are challenging times. Like you just got to like know that those are going to happen, and you got to push through them and know that there's going to be something on the other side, and give each other grace during those moments.
Well, and not to mention trust,
Yeah.
because the other part, there's a lot of times just like I'm at a 10 and it's just be like, ugh, whatever. Right. You have no idea what my day was like. Quit being a pansy. And so that's a hard part too. You were going to say something. That's why I stopped.
No.
Oh, no. I thought you were going to say something. I didn't want you to forget it because you guys say such great things.
Well, I appreciate that perspective, Cam, because to be fair, we've lived this for so long. I've kind of forgot about that. And that is a gift. That is something we don't have to fill each other in on our days a lot of the times. A little bit, right? Like, oh, I had these conversations or this, but like we're in it together. And that is a huge gift. It presents a different set of challenges.
For sure.
But I would love it. This is a nitty-gritty experiment. Like, what if you and your wife switch places for a day? And like
we would
try
both want to quit our lives.
But like try to get that perspective a little bit of what the other person, because really like that's how we become more empathetic people to everyone, is when we understand what they're going through and their stories of where they've come from.
Well, and you bring up a good point and I do kind of say that because obviously I go home and I parent, right? And there's obviously been days where she goes, like she went overnight to Park City, I don't know, like a month ago. I had the kids for a couple days. So I feel like it's a little bit easier, it's a little bit easier for me to kind of know what's going on at the house because I experience it. It's not like she'll ever come here and spend a day doing what I do. Right. So that is a little bit more of a disconnect. And that's kind of been, you also don't want to go home and be negative either, right? Like I don't want to go home and just be like, honey, this is what happened today, like blah, blah, blah. So you want to communicate, but you don't want to so that's always been kind of a tricky thing for us. And obviously we're still trying to figure it out. But it is hard for her to relate to anything that I'm talking about because she doesn't really experience that, right? She doesn't come and kind of cover a shift. I'm sure my staff might like that if she did. She's way less scary. But yeah, I mean it's hard. But it's no different than you guys. That's one part that you guys have, and ours is different. But you also have a whole lot of other challenges that I don't have in my marriage.
And I think that's the great part is like it's different, totally. And that's okay, and that's cool. That's
right.
Beautiful for you. It's beautiful for you. Beautiful for us. Like, but starting from that place of gratitude, like yeah. It's cool that we get to do it like this, right?
For sure.
So right now is more focus on the Be Fulfilled side to grow that from both of you, or have you tried to split focus as you've kind of grown both brands, or like what are you guys like as you center energy and focus right now? Where do you find most of it going?
It's different for each of us. There's been much more division of labor. I am 100% focused on Be Fulfilled.
Okay.
99 out of 100 hours of my week are on Be Fulfilled. And I have a separate team.
You're working 100 hours a week?
No, I started
over like a month. Over like a month.
That analogy, I'm like, this isn't going to work, but I'm going to go with it. I'm already committed. I'm in. Yeah, 100 hours a week, babe.
Wow.
Yes, very impressive. I'm very impressive. So I'm focused on Be Fulfilled all day, every day.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, we hired a president of Sense of Style, so she takes on a lot of the day-to-day, and I'm also very much in the day-to-day at Sense of Style while overseeing the strategy and the vision for both companies.
Okay. So you're playing the creative on both sides then?
No, primarily the creative. So I'm CEO of both companies. That's the title I hold.
Okay.
But on the day-to-day, I'm working in Sense of Style.
Okay.
I jump over to Be Fulfilled more on strategy and vision.
Okay. How have you guys integrated kids into the business, or have you not?
We haven't.
Not a lot.
Okay.
To be fair, our family situation is unique. John mentioned our oldest two are adopted. Our oldest daughter struggles with mental health, and she's autistic with a mood disorder. And so we have a lot going on there. So the boys will come help in the warehouse once in a while, but not, to be fair, not very much.
Yeah.
Our boys are 11 and 8.
Okay.
So they're still fairly young. And yeah, I don't know. We've never quite, that hasn't really been a big focus for us. I think we've kind of wanted to give them space to see what they want to do. but we also have high values where one of our important values is hard work. So like we struggle with that. That's, I think, an area that as parents to our children, we struggle with how do we do that while still, working as hard as we're working. How do we instill that in them? And I don't know that we have that figured out yet.
Okay.
It's a good tax write-off if you have them work. You can pay them up to $11,000. $12,000. And, write that off.
So
just letting you know.
To be fair, like when we have a warehouse sale, the boys are there helping in the background. Or John helped one of his clients run a huge convention last summer and did their merch shop. And our 8-year-old was there the entire time helping.
No,
he was awesome.
So I wish I could say we had more of a cool plan around that. We don't. We're taking ideas.
That's
help us know.
I don't even think it has to be a plan.
There's no shame or judgment. It's just I'm always interested because for me that's something that always on the forefront of my mind. Like how can I instill these type of principles into my kid? And it's always cool to hear, parents in different family situations and how they do it, and what's worked, what hasn't worked. So that's where the question comes from. So it's not like you need to. It was just more of a curiosity.
And I think it's important for them to see what we do, so they have a little respect, little punks.
Yeah, especially when they get those teenage years,
Right. Well, and they have to know that, if life's good, right? You've got a nice house, I'm sure, Sprinter van. It's like, you got to know that we worked our butts off to get this and it doesn't come cheap, right? Like I brought Dodger cooking a couple times, just another, like wake up at 5 a.m., like come and cook. And it's just kind of like, wow, Dad, that sucked. Like, thanks. And so it's, I think that's important for them to see it.
Tell the story about Chase in the garden last weekend, what he said to you. So we garden. John is the ultimate hobbyist.
Right.
Just so you know, he loves his heirloom tomatoes. It's a thing. We'll bring you some.
Hey,
how many plants?
The only tomatoes I like.
How many plants this year?
We only did like 36 plants this year. I've done up to 72, and it's a lot of. And I just give them out. I just love to make them and eat them caprese, and then give them to other people and just have fun with them. Wow. So as I've been gardening, Courtney was out of town, and I just had the boys come out and help me, and my son, and he's kind of our artist, kind of free spirit. And I'm like, hey, no, you got to be digging out these weeds. And he's like, Dad, you have to work hard. Nothing's given to you in life, is it? I was like,
oh my
nope.
God.
And good. This is why you're here gardening with me. And it was a moment, and I was proud.
How old is he?
He's 11.
Okay.
And I was proud of him because his younger brother, 8-year-old, is a little more entrepreneurial, like always hustling. Right. He has like $100 in savings accounts, and my other two kids have negative balances at all times. Right? And my I'm trying to teach him because my younger son will try to hustle him a little bit. He's like, I'll give you $5 to go reset the router because the internet's down. And then
this happened this week.
Yeah, and he comes back up and Ryder's like, oh, pay him $1, Dad. I was like, whoa. And so we had a conversation about negotiating, living to your word, and making sure like you follow through with what you say you're going to do. And it was a good conversation, like have that in just a fun setting.
Yeah.
Where we're talking about like.
So you guys are doing a lot more than you think.
We're trying.
Well, have you guys heard of green light cards?
We have them. They're fantastic.
Amazing.
I pay my kids so
much. It's life-saving. No more cash in their pockets coming out of the dryer.
But see, well, yes. And it's funny because I said this yesterday to Ashley. So through this COVID thing, like we had to get creative as the restaurant because we lost so much catering. And so we started doing these off-site, like pre-order. It's my first little foray into e-commerce. And so we're, Kaysville, for example, we'll go all the way there and people will pre-order. So the kids have been my runners. So they've come every Tuesday and Thursday. They get paid $20 a piece, and they're the ones running to the cars to get the names and then taking the orders out to the cars. And so it has been really cool to see like the green light cards going up. But I was just talking to Ashley last night about this. I'm like, I still think kids need that tactile, like you have the money and it is gone now. Like if you spend it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I want to try to figure out a way. I almost wish we're pretty anti-phone,
But we're going away from cash, man.
No,
like,
and
let
I
them
know,
live
and
in
you're
that
right.
world.
I just
Start
want them to
Bitcoin.
see.
Like,
I just want them to see like it go away because they don't have phones, right? So they can't see the money necessarily go down.
Gotcha.
So I just want to figure out. So Greenlight almost needs to make like a magnet for the fridge that connects to Bluetooth.
Show us the
each
balance.
Kid's account balance.
I actually like that.
You know what I mean?
a lot.
Just something where they can always be seeing it.
Because they're always
yeah.
asking us too, like,
Yeah,
how much do I have in my,
Right. It'd be cool for them to be able to track it without having a phone, because we're
and that's why
anti that.
The one brother said he owed his brother $1 and he wanted John to transfer it instead of
Right.
the $5 he actually promised.
That's awesome. Yeah, my boys, they started a garbage can cleaning business.
Nice.
And they'll go out and they'll bring all their friends to help them. And their friends are like, well, I don't need to get paid. I just want you guys to be able to play faster. So now they'll go and they've got all these friends that are helping them clean for free so they can all go and play faster. I'm like, good for you guys.
It's incentives.
Good job.
Right. Everyone has different. It's not always about the money.
That's
guys.
They're adding value.
Their purpose was to get to Minecraft as soon as possible.
Yes. That's true.
That sounds like something I would have done as a kid. Be the kid that helps them play faster. Right? Not the guy that's just like, if you help me, we can play faster.
So you guys have done a lot in the mindset work. You've spoken a lot. As we wrap up, do you have I haven't asked it this way in a long time. What's your favorite piece of advice that you didn't follow?
Ooh.
I haven't asked this question for a long time. I like this question.
I can't really, I'm trying to make sense of that question.
So someone someone said something to you, gave you advice,
and you
didn't do it.
Okay.
Okay,
I see.
I've got mine.
Okay.
We were talking about Tyler Norton before.
Uh-huh.
A piece of advice Tyler Norton gave me was think big, test small. Oh, I did? When you start growing in entrepreneurship, it's a lot of times you think, oh, we're going to keep this growth pattern. We're living in it, and you build yourself bigger than you need to be. Maybe it's employee count, maybe it's software, maybe it's inventory. I've probably done it in all three areas at some point or another. And keep that vision, keep thinking big, keep growing, but test it small, because it can really eat cash and energy super quick when you do it wrong.
Oh, I'm sure.
Kind of rhymes with profit first, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with profit first.
Yeah.
Mike Michalowicz.
Is this another one of those things you guys call books?
Yes.
One
Yeah.
of those things.
Or I'm really into the listening.
No, that's
books
what I've been
now.
doing. That's audiobooks are where it's at.
Someone just asked, someone's like, do you call it reading?
It was
Yeah.
Betsy.
Oh, yeah, that's who it was.
It's fine to call it reading.
It's reading.
Like,
No one needs to know.
If I listen
totally
to a book,
right.
can I say
you
I
sound
read
way
it?
smarter if you say you read the book. Not so I listened to this great book.
100% it's
Right.
reading.
So
I'm a huge Mike Michalowicz fan. In fact, Profit First changed our business.
Yeah.
I think managerial accounting, like I said before, super difficult to wrap your mind around. Cash accounting's insane. He's created a system for entrepreneurs that I think everyone should follow.
So good.
But that's mine. Is think big, test small.
Got it. So that was advice you got that you were happy you followed.
No, that I did not follow.
Okay.
We have taken employee counts too high and had to bring them back down. We've taken inventory counts too high and had to bring them back down. We've paid for softwares that were way out of our budget and way too big for what we were doing, and had to
In
rethink
hopes of growth.
In
Got it.
hopes of future growth. And that has cost us in finance. It's also cost a lot of time and heartache. So I think so much of American business culture right now is focused around hyper growth. And I think we're seeing in this age of COVID that perhaps that's not the best version of the world for everyone.
Correct.
well, and I think that starts at an individual level. I think right now everybody wants things fast.
Yeah.
Like I want success fast. I want followers fast. I want.
They
you know
want
what I mean?
they want the image of
Right.
success, and so they want a business they want to be able to say that, oh, my business is doing
Right.
$10 million. When you look back, they're losing money.
Totally.
Right.
It's like, I'd much rather have a
You have-
$500,000 business and bring home $200,000 than have a $10 million business and all the headaches that come with it
For
and
sure.
have nothing.
Exactly. So I think that this is why it's okay to grow slow. I think it's Steve Jobs that's like, this is the longest overnight success story ever told. My story is not one of overnight success. 13 years I've been doing this.
Right.
And it's from slow, steady progress, making a lot of mistakes, but continuing.
Well, and it's more than 13 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the other thing people forget. It's like my restaurant turned 7 in a few days, but I was barbecuing and losing money for 6-7 years before that,
Exactly.
you know? And so it's
that calling you talked about, right?
Like
that
it all
passion,
kind of
the
leads
why,
up to
all
it.
that stuff. Call it whatever you want to call it.
All right, mine.
Your second choice.
Yes, my second choice. Think big, test small is my first choice. She stole it. It's in the similar vein of I always believe that you could sell your way out of problems. And 10 years as
Sales solve all, right?
in the sales perspective, it was like, and I had people tell me like, no, you need to, tune up, get clean, and then sales will add profit. And I kind of resisted that for years, and even for a little while, Sense of Style. Then as I adjusted and started looking at things differently from an operational perspective, I'm like, there is so much opportunity and savings here that if we keep ourselves flat, we can get the, change, flip the script, double profit, whatever you want to call it, right? And that took me a decade plus to really understand and wrap my head around. But I didn't take that advice early on that operations is where you can actually make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, and that's true. There's nothing worse either than selling and then not getting anything
At the
out
end.
of it because ops is, it's just like
Ops is a mess.
Like if I have a great month in sales, but I totally overspent on groceries and, cost of goods, what was the point?
And this is, and that's been like, that lesson's been burned deep in me. And that's kind of like the core value I try to bring to a lot of my clients is like, yeah, you can sell. And if you want to do the ops yourself, great. You're just not going to make as much money. Or you could pay me to do it and you will make a lot more money because we'll do it clean and on fixed rates and no variables, et cetera. And so like it's been something that's really been deeply ingrained with me in the last few years.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, not to mention the value of the extra energy you have from not having to do it yourself, right? So it lets you kind of focus in on the things that you excel at. And so
One of my new favorite
huge.
phrases, who, not how. Love it.
Yeah, that's
How
great.
you solve
I wish I
problems.
could remember all these things.
Who, not how.
Who, not how. You'd
I like
think
it.
I'd be able to remember that one, but I won't.
I believe in you,
It's only
Cam.
3
you.
I
words.
believe in you.
Listen, no, it's 4. ADHD. Okay? Leave me alone.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. This has been so much fun.
An absolute pleasure. You guys are amazing. When the
real
marriage and
deal.
business seminar starts, please let me come.
Well, thanks for having us. And
So where can they find you? I mean, where do you want people going?
so they can follow me personally on Instagram at Courtney Ellen Brown, my name. John is on Instagram at Mr. Sense of Style. The calendar's coming out next year.
Hey.
Trim it up, guys. I'm working on it. It's COVID pounds.
I can't wait for the tomato.
I'll put
Well, that's
tomatoes,
the springtime. Yeah, like April.
What month is that going to be?
right? Cucumbers don't come till the fall.
Amazing. That's why we have it. Okay, well, check them out. Follow them.
We're Sense of Style all over. CENTS
Right.
of style.
Cool.
So thank you guys so much.
So
What a
much
good
fun.
time.
Yeah.